Hello everyone, and welcome back to JavaScript Lessons and Codecademy. So last time we talked about inheritance and how it can be used. Today we're going to be talking about how variables and methods are organized within a method and how they can be accessed and what can access them. So let's get started. In JavaScript, all properties of an object are automatically public. So public means that they can be accessed outside the class. Think of these properties as the information a class is willing to share. Look at the person class. This class, it has three public properties: first name, last name, and age. On lines 8 and 9, we access the first name and last name properties of John and assign them to my first and my last. Notice that we are free to access the first name and last name properties, which is what we mean when we say they are public. So what we need to do then is declare a third variable called myAge and make it equal to John's age. There we go. That's simple, we already know how to do that. Private variables, good, but what if we want an object what if an object wants to keep some information hidden, for whatever reason? Just as functions can have local variables which can only be accessed from within that function, objects can have private variables. So private variables are pieces of information you do not want to publicly share, and they can only be directly accessed from within the class. So for example, with a method from the class. So the person class has been modified to have a private variable called bank balance. Notice that it looks just like a normal variable, but it is defined inside the constructor for a person without using this, but instead using var. This makes bank balance a private variable. So there is no this here, you just use var, bank balance, and that. I'm guessing that you can take in an argument here as well to make it whatever. So for example, if you put something like money here, instead of 7500 you could put money here, and that would still be private. But for the sake of this example, we're going to keep it at 7500 like that. So to make it private, you need to do, instead of this.age or this.bankbalance, you do var bank balance. So create an object John using the person constructor. Okay, so we need to pass, you can have any name and age you wish. Well, his first name is going to be John. His last name can be, what's a common name? Smith. And his age can be 45, because that's the first two numbers that I pressed down. Next, try to print his bank balance. What happens? I think that it's either going to give us an error or something else. Let's see. Oops, John is not defined. Yes, it is. What? How is that even possible? Create an object John. So var John equals new person. We definitely define John. Have I misspelled person or something? Oops, this is a problem. 45 should be a number, or maybe not. Do we need to console.log? That would give us a different error though, or should give us a different error. Create an object John using the person constructor. You can have any name and age you wish. Okay, that's weird. Why isn't it working? Will you be able to print bank balance like we did in the previous? Well, you'll never know until you don't try. Okay, I actually don't know what's going on. I will come back. It was just another spelling mistake. I had John H instead of John. And now if you try to save and submit, it works fine. So let's just move on. Accessing private variables. Although we cannot directly access private variables from outside the class, there is a way to get around this. We can define a public method that returns the value of a private variable, because with a method, the method is inside the class or inside the object, so it can access private things. So because it can access private things, you can make it print something out, and you can make it print out the private variable or value. So here we have included similar code from last time, but here we have added a method getBalance. Okay, modify getBalance so that it returns bank balance. So we can just do console.log and bank balance, or this. Would we need to make it this because it's var? Okay, let's see actually. Then on line 17, create a new variable named myBalance and set its value to John's bank balance. Oh, it needs to return bank balance, not print it out. That's why I was confused. There we go. You can do this by calling your newly defined getBalance method for John, then print myBalance. And this needs to not have a space in between. Line 14 should still print undefined. Okay, let's see. So there we go. So basically, as I said, this works on the basis of the function or the method is public, so you can access the method, and because the method can access everything in the class or in the object, you can access private values as well. So using the method, you can access a private variable and then take it out as a public. I don't actually know where private variables or values can be useful practically, but if you guys do, please let me know in the comments. But for now, let's move on. Private methods. Why did that code work? An object's private variables can only be accessed by other methods that are part of that same object. So we just used an object's public method to access a private variable. Methods can also be private within a class and inaccessible outside of the class. So changing this dot return balance from the last exercise to var return balance makes this method private. So if you run the program trying to access the method, you get an undefined error this time. So you could just make another function which is public to access this function which accesses a private variable as well, if you really wanted to, but it really depends on what your needs are. As I said, I don't know how that can be used practically, so I won't go into it. So the way to access a private method is similar to accessing a private variable. You must create a public method for the class that returns the private method. So create a method called askTeller within the person class that returns the return balance method. So we need to do that here. Var, we need to call it askTeller. It needs to return the return balance. This means that it returns the method itself and not the result of calling that method, so you should not have parentheses after the return balance. Because askTeller returns a method, we need to call it to make it any use. Okay, that sentence doesn't sound very right, but okay, very correct. This is what var myBalance equals myBalance method does. Okay, so what do we need to do actually? Create a method called askTeller. Yep, we've done that within the person class that returns the return balance method. So we're returning the return balance method. This means that it returns the method itself and not the result of calling that method. Okay. Because askTeller returns a method, we need to call it to make it and make any use of it, I'm guessing. Like, let's see the hint, because I don't actually know what's wrong with this. So we have a method called askTeller. Oops, that's where I went wrong. So this would be wrong because this is private. So we need to do this dot askTeller equals function. Let's try that now. There we go. So the mistake I made was making this method also private. You're supposed to make it public, and to make it public you do this dot and then the name of the function or method and that. Otherwise it will again be private and you have no use for it. So I actually don't understand exactly why you don't need parentheses here. Let's just try it out with parentheses and see what happens. So submit. You should not have parentheses after return balance, so should return the method itself. So we're not calling whatever it's returning, whatever the method is returning, but we're calling the method itself. Okay, that kind of makes sense. But let's just move on, because I don't know how to really explain it. So passing arguments. The askTeller function has been modified within the person class to directly give you your balance. However, it now needs the account password in order to return the bank balance, okay? So I guess this is how it could be put into practice. So creating a variable called myBalance that calls the askTeller function with the password argument 1234. That's one simple password, but okay. Equals John dot askTeller, and we need to pass the argument 1234. There we go. So what we're doing here is, through John we're calling the argument the method askTeller, and if the password that we passed in is the same as that of the if statement checking, it returns balance. Otherwise it returns wrong password. So this is how it could be used. For example, I guess in the game, if you have the correct key, it can unlock it, but if you don't have the correct key, you can't hack it to unlock it. You would have to get the correct key and then insert the correct key and get to the other gate or something. Okay, that's an interesting way of using it, I guess. So if you guys have any questions, do feel free to ask in the comments. I will do my best to explain. I don't really know how to explain the no parentheses bit, but I might look into it if somebody asks me. But until next time, please like, share, subscribe, dislike if you didn't like the video, and tell me how I can improve for next time. But until that next time, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.